Okay, so we're on a recent league here. We've lost match 1 and match 2 against 4-Color and Eldrazi Post respectively. We're going to keep this hand. It's not the greatest, but I think the probes give us, with a couple of redraws, I think we're probably okay. Our opponent mulls to 5. We're just going to hope he's not on something fast. And his hand is pretty garbage here. Force of Will, search for Azcanta, Terminus, and a stack of lands. So I think we need to fetch end of his turn, or beginning of my turn, to minimise our risk of drawing yet another land. And he's led on planes for some reason. I'm sure there's a reason in his head for that. I don't really know what it is. We're not going to fire off the second probe just yet. He's not doing anything at the moment. We don't have anything to work with, so there's no good reason to fire off the probe. So he's going to start to get some filtering going with search for Azcanta, and he starts by dropping a predict, which I think was wrong. I think that should have been kept, so he could have used it in his coming turn to get a little bit of card advantage going, get the predict engine going. You can see we're holding the probe again as well. Once again, we have no reason to. We're playing out the Vol because we've got no reason not to. We can keep the Swamp to put back with a Brainstorm or similar. Our opponent's dropped a Volk and is now firing off a Brainstorm. So I think now Brainstorm has... now he's used a Brainstorm, he's going to have changed the texture of his hand. So I think we're a lot more interested in knowing what's going on. So we will want to fire off the Gitaxian probe in our coming turn. So we're going to lead on the probe so we can see more cards. And our opponent's done something a bit strange here, which is got rid of his Force of Will. So I guess he thought he was playing against Delver, perhaps? So we're just going to, I think, try to kill him this turn. I think if we keep something like Petal and a couple of rituals, I think we can therapy him. So I'm not normally quite so keen on Ad Nauseam from 14 life, but we're going to do it with a lot of mana floating and an LED, I think. Which means we're going to be doing it from a really safe point. Okay, so he had a Brainstorm and a couple of Snapcaster Mages, so now he's Brainstormed, there's only one spell that kills us. And that's a Force of Will. So if he didn't Brainstorm there, we were going to name Brainstorm. Otherwise, we're going to name Force. We get to see a counterbalance, which is nice to know about. But obviously not relevant right at this point. Okay, so we're going to have 8 mana, which is going to leave us with 3 black floating after ad nauseam, which is going to be more than enough for us to do more or less whatever we want. We kind of hope to draw tendrils here as much as anything. However, I think... So we have enough right there to actually kill him. So now we're just going further for the sake of it as much as anything else. And that gets us a nice easy win. So game 2 is a lot harder. Typically, we want ground seals to deal with snapcasters. We want Xanted Swarm because if it can resolve, it deals with all their counter magic. We take out Dark Petition just in case they have Rest in Peace, and we can trim a land and a Cabal Ritual for similar reasons. Well, we could trim a land for a different reason. We trim a land because we don't need the extra lands. It's possible we could cut a petal, but I think we're happy enough playing 14 lands in this matchup. They're not attacking our mana base. So we want to keep this hand. This hand has 2 LEDs and a probe. So if we probe and see no Force of Will and hit something like a Lotus Petal, we can try to win on the first turn. So I'm wondering if we're going to get red blasted here. Okay. That's completely fine. That means that our Brainstorm now next turn is much more likely to resolve. So I don't think we were all that keen to see the second Brainstorm. Okay, he's going to Fluster. He's being very aggressive with his counter magic, which it's possible in some games this would be very, very effective. I think from where we are now, we're only really interested in one thing, which is drawing a black source, which we'll very likely do naturally anyway. Okay. So I actually kind of want to draw one of those lands next turn. And we can now duress him. And still have black to go off with Infernal Tutor. And we see a pretty stacked hand here. So I kind of want to take the Force of Will, I think. That means Therapy off the top still deals with both his Fluster Storms. God only knows why he's firing off Predict here. I have a feeling the fact that we're in the 0-2 bracket at the moment, I have a feeling that means that we're not playing against the strongest player here. We're going to grab a Bayou off this fetch, just making sure that we have green up. He's firing off another Predict. have no understanding why he would fire off blind predicts. He's not in any rush. He's got double Flusterstorm and Surgical. Okay, so we're happy enough to fire off a Ponder here. And he's still very aggressively trying to beat up on our cantrips. Now I think it's a little more reasonable. And now we almost want to try to go for it. And I think surgicling Cabal Therapy there might not be the worst idea. Especially as we've just drawn a second. So if he flusters here, I think we can afford to Cabal Ritual. And a Cabal Ritual after this will either force him to use his Surgical, to take us off threshold, or let us pay for the Flusterstorm. Okay, now we have to pass the turn here because he still has a Force of Will up. So I think what we actually want to do is to be able to so how much mana do we have right now? We have 5. So we can cast Force of Will, so we can cast Past in Flames and force him to use the Force. But then we'll probably lose Past in Flames to Surgical. Leaving us with a slightly awkward position. So we could probably go for Ad Nauseam. If we do that. So we'd have to go for Ad Nauseam next turn. Okay, currently we know his exact hand. He's played out the Caracas. Okay, so it looks like we're going for the ad nauseam line this turn. I think we should have done it last turn. We were looking pretty good for it then. Okay, now he's going to cast the Surgical on the Past in Flames. So what this will do is adds 2 storm count, essentially, by taking 2 of his life and giving us a storm count. And he should be able to see our hand from here, which should hopefully lead to him scooping. Because what we're going to be able to do from here is, so what do we need? Storm count 4, 5, 6. So we're going to be able to natural tendrils him from here. So the tutor's going to be storm count 6, and we're going to have 1 spare. So basically 1 tutor spare in terms of mana count. So we're going to have 6 mana in pool, so we're going to be able to tutor for tutor. And then just grab our tendrils. And that will close out the match.